What is going on, guys and girls? LevelUp here at OnPointGaming's OnPointTactical. Today we're going to be talking about patches that either are necessary or that we would like to see updates, upgrades, things of that nature to either mechanics, weapons, or vehicles in Battlefield 4. One of the main issues that is sort of plaguing Battlefield 4 right now is the netcode. This is primarily present in higher rate game modes like Team Deathmatch, Obliteration, and Domination. These faster paced game modes really kind of suffer from the netcode problem that is always present, but because there's so much gunplay in these game modes, you really actually start to feel it a whole lot more than you do in Conquest and Rush. Now, the netcode, basically, imagine this. Imagine a netcode as a filter in a water hose. And water needs to come from your side of the yard, and it needs to get to the other side of the yard and back to the middle. That's kind of how internet and lag works in a shooter. It needs to travel that distance. Well, think of putting a really tight filter in on both ends of the hose. It's going to greatly slow down the production of water and therefore slow down the rate in which you can finish watering the entire yard, even if you, well, I don't know why you need to water a yard, but you get the point. That's basically what the netcode is right now. It is so slow that whenever you shoot a person, if they were running across your screen and you were leading them and you were hitting them just right, they were probably 10 degrees, 20 degrees to the side of where you were actually aiming. They were probably a lot further in front of where it looks like they are on your screen. It is at that point where it makes it difficult not only for snipers, but for burst assault rifles especially. They really suffer from this hit because accuracy is the one thing that these guns do well, and they simply can't do it well if the netcode doesn't want to cooperate and allow these weapons to be accurate. That's kind of the position where the burst guns and the DMRs also, they kind of sit in this awkward position where they need more accuracy, but they can't get it because of the netcode. One thing that DMRs definitely need, DMRs, can't really think of another way to put it. They suck. There's really no way around that. They don't do enough damage to make them competitive. Their damage per second is probably the lowest in the game, even worse than pistols, I'd have to imagine. Not to mention the fact that the way that the rate of fire acts in this game, you would have to be a ludicrous marksman to drop people in a competitive amount of shots. Not only would you have to hit them in the face, but you would have to hit them every single shot for 3 shots or 4 shots even. It just is mind-boggling that DICE would make these guns so terrible. They need to go back to the Battlefield 3 damage and accuracy model for DMRs, especially the Mark II. I really like the Mark II in Battlefield 3, and I honestly I can't use the stupid thing. I mean, I shoot a dude in the face like twice. I need to use one more bullet to even think about dropping him. It's pitiful. The maximum damage is something like 30 damage per shot, which sounds fine until you get to that point where it's like 30 or 40 damage up close. But either way, 2 bullets to the face is not enough to one bullet to the face is not enough to kill a person in close quarters. And these are 7.62 designated marksman rifles or battle rifles. Okay, they use 7.62 ammo, and I think that regardless of the weapon, if a person is shot in the face, they should be dead with 1 shot regardless of what weapon it is. I don't care about weapon balance or making it fair. That just is ridiculous to walk up on a person, shoot him in the face with a burst from your M4, see him lean back, and they dropped you simply because the netcode was either on their team or you know, they just got lucky. It seriously is aggravating for DMRs, and you know, I think that a headshot mechanic could be put into place, especially in hardcore mode, that could potentially make the gameplay slightly more enjoyable. Now, I mentioned hardcore mode. As it currently stands, normal mode is the stronger game mode. I know that a lot of people thought that in Battlefield 3, but I was not so certain. The thing that everybody always goes back to, and I entirely agree with this, is weapon balance. Weapon balance kind of just flies out the window in hardcore mode, and that is kind of one of the key things of making a shooter game both fun and also less rage-inducing at the same time, is balance. And whenever a light machine gun that does 34 damage can kill a person in 2 shots in close quarters, but assault rifles that use the same bullet need 3 shots to kill it, like, it doesn't line out. It doesn't line out really at all in normal mode because of how many shots it takes to kill a person at all, but it just really doesn't make sense, and it all in the end comes down to netcode. And the netcode struggles during Levolution events here. Look at this lagging mess. I've experienced this nearly every single time I've dislodged the destroyer on Parasol Storm. Me and Jim Dandy, we like running around in the ribs and the attack boats on Parasol Storm, wrecking as much stuff as we can and dislodging the destroyer whenever the storm sets in. It's really cool looking, and the dynamic waves, they get really cool looking after a while too. And in fact, they add a whole nother dynamic to boat combat because of how well people can hide behind them, the waves. And speaking of the ribs, I think that the miniguns on the transport helicopters and the ribs both need a bit of a damage increase versus infantry. You honestly are not that effective versus infantry with the miniguns, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the miniguns are 7.62, which is the same as the heavier light machine guns and DMRs. And if you had the 34 or so damage of a light machine gun on a minigun shooting something like 2,500, 3,000 rounds a minute, you would have an insanely good weapon. But then again, the shooting platforms are not all that solid, which is where it kind of would balance itself out, I think. It would not be all that bad relative to what some people think. The miniguns are not the most accurate things in the world, we all know that, but in the end, it also sort of comes down to a fact of this is insanely annoying because it's unrealistic. Its damage versus vehicles can be left unchanged because currently the boat-to-boat combat feels balanced as far as a rock, paper, scissors aspect. The ribs are more agile and quicker. The attack boats are a little harder to drive, and overall they're a bit faster, but they are not as agile, which is a very big part of a boat whenever the waves come around. That agility that the rib has can give you a pretty darn big advantage in conquest, and especially obliteration. If you are running the bomb across the map inside of a rib, that can be a pretty darn big advantage, actually. You can use that to your advantage. So currently the miniguns don't do a whole lot of damage to the attack boats on the ribs, but the attack boats can destroy the ribs, but the ribs can escape easy. That kind of feels balanced as far as a rock, paper, scissors design. Now, what does not feel balanced as a rock, paper, scissors design is the AA guns, the AA tanks, more to say, and the attack jets. The attack jets are so ridiculously overpowered at this point. It's kind of like rock, paper, scissors, and then attack jet is on top, just killing everything. It is at that point, and the AA tank, the AA tank, it is effective against infantry just as much as the miniguns, which is pretty effective, but could use some help. But you get those stupid missiles that don't require active lock-on. You just fire them, and then halfway through they lock onto their target, giving the pilot very little chance of actually deploying flares effectively, not to mention the fact that the netcode will not allow you to deploy flares effectively all that often either. But it gets to a point where you almost feel hopeless trying to flare in the helicopters versus the AA tanks that have gun upgrades on them. Also, I am one of those noobs. I did shoot a person in the face with a rocket launcher because I had been shot in the face with a rocket launcher a few too many times for me to not try it myself. Anyway, there's just several things that DICE needs to rethink, especially, and repair slash replace. Some mechanics can be changed. I did not go over all of this game's bugs, not by a long shot. Random system freezing, servers crashing, losing all your progress, battle log not updating quick enough, ranking up 4 times to the same rank in the same game, completing assignments and then completing them again the next game. There's just things like that that are supremely annoying as far as screen clutter. Oh gosh, I don't even want to mention the screen clutter. There's so much HUD when in Team Deathmatch, and the stupid revive symbols are so flipping huge that a full-size person can actually hide behind these glowing logos. That kind of is aggravating. Not kind of aggravating, it's actually really aggravating, but there's just a bunch of issues that need to be worked on. Rush doesn't feel really all that balanced right now. Take out a couple of the vehicles, I think we're good to go. Leave the light tanks and the jeeps in for Rush. Leave the tanks out for Conquest and Obliteration. That's kind of my opinion on the Rush game mode as it is, because the tanks can just kind of camp there and be the deciding factor in a win or a loss, which is kind of aggravating, because I don't know how the rest of you guys feel about it, but I personally do not like dying to the same tank over and over. So as always, thanks for watching, guys. This has been my video talking about what we want and need in Battlefield 4. I will be covering the PlayStation 4 launch without headphones, unfortunately, but I'll be doing an unboxing video and all that. It should be really fun. So have a good one, and I will see you guys on the battlefield, most hopefully on the PlayStation 4 network. Peace.